Hi, it's Melanie Benson Strick here, host of New Era Success TV, and I have a really, really great guest with me today, Wendy Yellen. And Wendy and I are new friends. I guess kind of new, but we've always kind of had a connection. And we have been exploring some really interesting thoughts around having a bad day. And I think, Wendy, I know you know this, and I know this, that it's really normal to have a bad day. But what we do when we have a bad day can have a really extraordinary impact on our results, our mindset, our well-being. It can either be dealt with in a really loving and kind way, or it can be destructive and take us out of the game. And, I'd really like to hear your thoughts about what's up for you around having a bad day? Because well, let me just say this, that you and I both had our own very interesting days today, even coming to this call. So, so what's up for you about bad days?
All right. So one of the things I want to preface this with is that Melanie and I were talking before, and as we were preparing, and we were really talking about bad days for people who are out to make a bigger difference. Is that fair to say, Melanie?
Yeah, and which is something we both are, and we both coach people who are out to make a big difference.
Yes, who
Okay.
know you, that people who know you're here, that's why you're here, not necessarily because the world is a mess, but because it feels good. And doing it with heart and integrity. And that's what I call a tsunami maker. So when you're that kind of person and that's what drives you, and you have a bad day, it feels it's bad on so many levels. It feels you're not doing what you came. I'll speak for myself. I'm not doing what I came here to do. This isn't who I want to be. I know it will not get me the results that I want. And most of all, I don't want to be this. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to inflict it on other people. And it's not what I'm about. And yet, did I have a bad day today? Yes. And I was really reflecting on it. And of course, what do I have? Not just an interview, but a video interview where it shows, right? So I really got to walk my talk today. And so I did a lot of work to reconnect back to who I really am. But what you and I were talking about earlier was that, you know, for me, there was a time when I didn't know that there was a real me that didn't feel so bad. And I felt like I had to kind of contort myself or process myself back into feeling good. Like maybe there was a list of something I should do or affirmation or something outside of me. And I know, does that resonate with you that did you used to at least feel that there was something outside of you that you had to do?
Oh, well, this is such an interesting concept because, we could even say that it's possible to not just have a bad day, but to have a bad week, a bad month, a bad year, maybe even like feel like you're having a bad life.
Yeah,
Hopefully
sure.
we're not dealing with bad life, but like I had a couple bad years. It didn't even stop at a day. And I took it really personally, like I took it on as if there was something broken or wrong inside of me. And, my old self, before I learned a lot of what I learned, would have looked for a fix outside of myself.
Yes.
And I think it's really interesting that we're having this conversation because many of the people who are out there doing transformational work and are change agents and tsunami makers, as I love that word that you use, I think when we're confronted with a bad day or a bad time in our life, we start looking for a way to feel better so we can continue to do our work, which brings up all kinds of interesting things. It can, in the short term, mean we get therapy or support, or we go to a coach, or we do a transformational program, which there's so many support systems out there. I know a lot of the work that you do is really significant in this area. But at the worst case scenario, we're turning to fast remedies such as drugs and alcohol and maybe addictive behaviors and things that are causing us to diminish our capacity over the long term, even though we think we're fixing us in the short term. And so I think what I personally experience is I had to pull myself out of the world of being a victim and saying, I've got to go outside myself because I'm not capable inside. And I had to invest in mentors and trainings, and we have done some work. We did a session that was extraordinarily powerful for me around this, to really learn how to reconnect with that energy that I need to bring forward in the moment when I need to bring it forward the most. So I can totally relate to that, and I think this is where mastery comes in. We were talking about people who are at the optimum level of performance in their life, athletes, entrepreneurs, tsunami makers. We've already gone through the beginning phases of a business. We've gotten past that, but now we're like, how do I get even more out of myself? How do I get into that peak performance zone? How do I deal with things we're dealing with a whole nother level? Like, I know you experience that with the people you're working with.
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm here. That's my passion, is people just like you described already. It happens to all of us in every level. We're already people already making that difference. No matter who we are, no matter who anyone is, who you meet, the obstacle you meet in the road is always you. And if you don't get that, then you're really losing a lot of the power to be able to shift the inside so that you can keep growing and growing and growing. Because as you and I talked about other times, there's no arrival. It's always about the next expansion. And for at least the kind of people that I work with, expansion is like the queen. There's always a desire to be bigger, to grow, to connect more with heart, to connect more with source, to connect more with our own spirit, and that there is absolutely no end. And when you talked before about like addictions, it doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol or TV or anything like that. It can be also addiction, let's say, to pursuing work, let's say, in such a way that you're closed off, right? That you have to close your heart in order to keep going because the going is rough. And when that happens, then you lose everything. And if you're aware, which I think people watching this are aware, you're losing yourself at the same time as you don't know what else to do. And
so true.
Yeah, it's a very subtle way we take ourselves out. Oh, I'll connect with my heart later. I'll just do my work now.
I'll
And
do
then,
what I'm supposed to do to make money, even though it's killing me inside.
yeah. And everyone listening to this probably knows that's not a good idea, but with some honesty, there's some times that you've done it. Maybe not all the time, but we all do it at moments. And that's that's to me what's so important about why I love being an entrepreneur and why I love working with entrepreneurs who want to expand, is because those are the really precious places. Those are the really juicy places. Those are the special places where a little fork in the road, a place where you can actually access more of who you are, it's going to make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, that's so true. We were also talking about this idea that many of us, and I think in a lot of ways can be the trigger for bad days, is that our history doesn't necessarily have to create our future, but many of us live in this space where our history is dictating everything about what our experience is right now and what we believe is possible in our future. What are your thoughts around that?
I'm glad you brought that up because I loved when we were talking about that. And in a group that I do in my mastermind, I opened it up recently with two questions. These are people, most of whom have been doing eidetic work for a while. The first question was, if you had the door open to what you really want and you were standing at the threshold and it was right there on the other side and all of it was right there, what examples would you use to stop yourself from crossing the threshold? And people went really deep. I can't have that. That's not me. I'm not good enough. That's just a fantasy. And it just went all over the map. Everybody had some historical reason that was proof why that wasn't for them. And then I asked them, what if that, and then what would you say to yourself as more proof that that wasn't for you? So how do you convince yourself now, in the now, that that's not true? And all the history came up. And my father went bankrupt twice. You know, my mother was an alcoholic. The nuns just terrorized me. Whatever it is. I mean, everybody's got their own story of why they specifically can't have what they want. We all do that. And then we use history to prove it. It's got, but history is, first of all, history is not real. It's only a fraction of what happened. For example, even though you and I talked just a couple minutes before we press play on the recording, right? If we went back to that, you and I would have different memories of what happened. Different aspects of it would stand out, different feelings. You were checking recordings and I was wondering if my hair looked good. I mean, we had different things that we were focused on, right? And so that's going to shape the memory. And so the memory even itself is not real. And even if you're remembering 100% accurately, which is impossible, it's only then. But we keep putting it ahead of us and ahead of us and ahead of us and ahead of us. And we insist that our present and our future has to conform to that. And it's not rational. It's not conscious. We don't do it on purpose, but everybody does it. And that's what I've learned from the work that I do, is there's so much more to us. It's not just an idea. I know it to my core now. I know it to my core, and I didn't know that before. And I didn't know that for, decades. And I wouldn't have believed you if you'd told me it was true.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the things I'm realizing is that you have to be aware of that relationship and what's happening between the experience you're having and what you can control, what you can change, and what you have the ability to do right now is to disengage from that history, to disengage from those old memories, those experiences that you're telling yourself are real, and create new possibilities based on, like, I almost want to say there's like a whole energetic field of possibility that we can create in this moment, instead of just dictating what's possible from our past.
So in my work, what I want to do is make a little bit of just a small addition to that for me has made a huge difference, which is that we don't have to create it, that it's literally, honestly, deeply already there. And it's so close, it's shocking. And the painful memories, or the traumatic stuff, or that kind of all of that is actually the way in. It's the treasure chest lid. But most people try to go around it or undo it or make it not real, make it as if it didn't happen. But then as soon as you scratch the surface, right, then that's where we get snagged. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I guess on one level we could say that having a bad day or having a bad experience is actually a good thing, because it's giving us information about something that we need to know that could allow us to shed a piece of us that we're carrying around to allow something even better through.
Even calling something bad. I mean, this goes into a whole other thing, that whole story of the town where the man has, you probably heard this, or there's a son that loses a limb, and everybody says, "Oh, I'm to the father, I'm so sorry, that must be terrible." And he says, "We'll see." And then everybody gets conscripted to go. Everybody in the town, all the young men, have to go to war and fight and be killed. And everybody in the town says, to the father, "You're so lucky. He's not going to have to go. You're going to be able to keep your son. It's so wonderful." And he says, "We'll see." And on and on and on. It's like, we don't know. We don't, what we call good and bad. I mean, this is a whole other topic, but to give it that kind of a box, it really contains things from growing. And does it feel good all the time? No. But is it real in life? I think so. I know it is.
So we started with this idea that how do you deal with having a bad day?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to someone who's having a bad day and needs to show up and perform and really bring their best foot forward, even though they don't feel like it on any level?
Well, you and I are going to do a whole hour on something to go into this deeply, experientially. And you asked me if I could give a little bit of a how-to here. And what I said, and what I want to say here is the work that Melanie and I are going to do on the telesummit, it goes beyond soundbite, and it goes to the core of who we all are. It's very unique, and it's not a 1 minute thing. It's not a fix. It's a deepening. And so you and I are going to take a whole hour and take people to those places, and that is my full intention. So I'd say come to the telesummit.
I guess I should tell everybody what the telesummit is. So no matter when you're listening to this, this will be available to you starting in February of 2012. And it's called Answering the Call Today. So you can find it at answeringthecalltoday.com. And what it is about how do you really answer that call to greatness, that call that you are meant to be more, do more, and express more on this planet. So we invite you to come join us. All right, so Wendy, how could people find out more about you and your work?
There's a great way that people can access weekly eidetic imagery tips where I walk you through different experiences of yourself in a really different way. So the best way is to sign up for the free Easing Tips, which is eideticlifecoach.com. And eidetic is EIDETIC, eideticlifecoach.com. That's a great way to find out more.
And I get them. They're amazing, and I love them, and I read them, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what I need to hear today. So, Wendy, thank you so much for joining us today on New Era Success TV. We would love to hear your comments and shares in the posts below. Please tell us what your experiences are. Share with us, how do you get yourself out of a bad day? And how could you integrate some of these tips that we've shared with you today? And most importantly, I hope you'll join us when we host the Answering the Call virtual summit. So this is Melanie Benson Strick, host of New Era Success TV.